Welcome, everyone. We will get started in just a moment.
Yeah, I think there are about 30 seconds until the rest of the breakout room folks join.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, I think that everybody from the other room has joined.
Yes.
So I think we're turning first to Jay to give greetings. Correct?
Yeah. Where did Jay go? There. Jay, are you able to unmute? You can't unmute. Okay. Just a moment then. What are you in, Jay? Are you Rabbi Jay here?
There we go. Thank you, Alana. I'm Jay Kornsgold. I have the honor of being the president of the Rabbinical Assembly and wanted to welcome all of you to this Azkarah. It's an opportunity for all of us to remember our colleagues and our friends who have died here, who have died during this past year, and who were members of the Rabbinical Assembly or their spouses. It's always a difficult time for all of us, and especially the families who we are grateful who have joined us today. And I welcome all of you as well. I want to also thank our colleague, Jan Kaufman, for the beautiful memorial book, which now I knew she did it for a lot of years, but just found out that she's been doing for 31 years. And so thank you, Jan, for everything that you have done for the RA and for what you continue to do for the RA. I was thinking as we're gathering here this afternoon or this morning or this evening, wherever you are, of kind of the day, in addition to this Azkarah, today we are celebrating that 8 hostages have come home. And at the same time, we are mourning the loss of the 67 people who died tragically in Washington, D.C., both on the helicopter and in the airplane. And we keep them in our thoughts and prayers. And again, I think that as I think about that, that ultimately is an interesting idea in terms of being a rabbi. We have the same day, we could have happiness, we can have sadness. And so we keep them in our thoughts and in our prayers. Today, we in a few moments will have a tribute, as you see, to our colleagues and our colleagues' spouses. Following that, we'll have the memorial prayers, a Devar Torah, Kaddish Rabbanan, and then we'll have the presentation by Jacqui and Yaron Vital, and I'll tell you more about that in a little bit later. I now have the good fortune of presenting our colleague, friend, Phil Scheim, who is one of our past presidents of the Rabbinical Assembly for a tribute to our deceased members and spouses. Rabbi Scheim.
Thank you, Jay. As rabbis, we are aware of many things: the priorities that await us, the classes, sermons, and eulogies that need to be prepared, the calls and visits that need to be made, and so on. All of these things fall into the category of the known. But there's also the category of the unknown, that which we are unable to fathom. We don't know when what we do, what we say, how we react, how we respond to even the most apparently pedestrian event may have lasting impact. Be it the student in our classroom or lecture hall, the congregant in our pews, the patient in the hospital, sometimes we touch them in ways that we may never know. Going back almost half a century ago, I remember a rabbinical school experience as if it happened yesterday. JTS had endured the tragic loss of one of its outstanding, young, dynamic Talmud professors, Rabbi Hillel Hyman Zal. The day of the funeral, afternoon classes were canceled, but morning sessions continued. I attended my Talmud class as usual. My teacher, Rabbi Israel Frankus Zal, whom we lost just over a year ago, was also Hillel Hyman's teacher. As class that sad morning began, Rabbi Frankus could barely speak. His words were choked with tears. But as he continued with the words of the sugya we were studying, his voice grew more steady. Hazahav koneh et hakesef, a text that I struggled to understand, took on new meaning as metaphor for the power of an eternal tradition to lift our spirits during unsettling times. Throughout my rabbinic career, when confronting challenge and tragedy, that classroom experience at 30, 80, 50 years ago reminded me that sometimes the pages of our tradition literally are what it takes to lead us to the necessary next page of life when the current page is filled with pain and uncertainty. Just as I am certain that Rabbi Frankus would never know how influential his actions that day, decades ago, were to me and likely to others as well, we have no way of estimating the impact we may have, short-term and long, on those we encounter during our complex and challenging careers. My pride in being part of our rabbinical assembly comes in knowing how many thousands of impactful moments worldwide result from the diligence, devotion, and dedication of our wonderful fellow colleagues. And in remembering the colleagues whose lives and whose careers we recall today, whom we've lost this past year, we remember the known, reflected in the biographies we read and cherish, but we also imagine that which they may never have known, ways in which their actions, their examples, their models of piety, of learning, of deep dedication stirred the souls of their students, their congregants, their colleagues, their campers, their families, their friends, their communities. As I now share a small sampling of the known, allow the unknown to penetrate our hearts as well. Matthew Bellis, taken from us at age 49 during Hanukkah, the holiday which for years he had scripted the musical performance at the Charles E. Smith Jewish Day School in Washington, previously taught and served in rabbinic capacities at day schools in New York and in his native Vancouver. His love of education inspired countless young students in his all too short but stellar career. David Blumenfeld's weekly Torah Sparks that he initiated through USCJ may represent a minuscule representation of his manifold contributions to the Jewish world, but his lifetime dedication to synagogue, to learning, to Holocaust commemoration, to community building, to organizational and movement vitality and strength did indeed spark a widespread Jewish awareness that continues to this day. Neil Brief, whose long pulpit career was characterized by his impeccable memory and profound personal warmth, was noted for courageously standing up to the neo-Nazis who rallied in his Skokie community. He would not know of the recent death of his grandson, Yonah, from mortal wounds sustained on October 7th in defense of Israel and the Jewish people that his Saba had so honorably served. Bert Cohn, synonymous with Camps Ramah, from his days as a camper in Ramah's very first year to his directorship of the National Ramah Commission, was a guiding and inspirational force in Jewish education who cemented the foundations of Ramah, which would become the greatest success story in the history of the conservative movement, and whose professorship in education at JTS helped pave the way for future generations of quality educators. Donald Crane, throughout his extensive rabbinic career, prioritized youth activities, organizing Camp USY in multiple venues. His list of organizational involvements in its length suggests the extent of his striving for a more caring and compassionate society. Included in that list in more recent days was his leadership of the RA Association of Retired Rabbis. Robert Firestein, a leading historian of conservative Judaism, is known for his history of the Rabbinical Assembly, A Century of Commitment, and A Different Spirit, A History of the Early Years of JTS, among other writings on American Jewish historical figures and institutions. In addition to his academic teaching, Bob maintained a full-time rabbinic pulpit career in his one New Jersey congregation for over 30 years. Robert Fine, in addition to his pulpit career, served as a prison chaplain and as an academic, teaching ancient Jewish history and mastering numerous classical languages. A longtime active member of the CJLS, working on significant shuvot. As chair of its liturgical publications committee, Bob was integral to the creation of Machzor Lev Shalem, and undoubtedly proud that his son David followed in his CJLS and academic footsteps. Emmanuel Goldsmith, whose travel from Halifax, Nova Scotia to Birmingham, Alabama in 1963 attested to his pulpit career being coupled with his deep commitment to civil rights. Editor of the Reconstructionist Journal in its early years, he was a passionate Yiddishist whose books, recordings, and university classrooms reflected his love of and dedication to the preservation of Yiddish language and culture. Michael Gretz, Echad mimiyasdei tnuatenu hamasortit ba'aretz, נסע לארץ מיד אחרי קבלת צמיחתו ביוני 67, בעקבות מלחמת ששת הימים. כוונתו אז היה להישאר זמן מה בארץ, ואחר כך לחזור לתפוצות, אבל יחד עם נעמי הוא אף פעם לא עזב את מדינת ישראל. שירותו בחברה קדישא במלחמת יום הכיפורים השפיע עליו בהרבה, לחזק את מחויבותו ולהשתתף בבניית מדינה מלא רגישות לכל תושביו. עבודתו בעומר, בתנועה, בהקמת תנועת הנוער נועם, בעריכת סידור ואני תפילתי, ובעבודתו בנגב עם אוכלוסיות שונות, כל אלה רק חלק קטן מתרומתו לעולם המסורתי ולעם ישראל. Jules Harlow, Paitan, poet, educator, translator, writer, director of publications, mentor, bequeathed to our movement, to the Jewish world, some of the most groundbreaking and inspiring liturgical works ever produced. From the Likutei Tefillah, which guided generations of rabbis through life cycle events, to what forever would be known as the Harlow Machzor, to Sidur Sim Shalom, Chumash Eitz Chaim, his translation of Megillat HaShoah, his English renderings of Israeli poetry, and the works of Agnon, among others, all reflect an enormity of contributions that forever enrich our spiritual and literary lives. Lester Herring, throughout his impactful pulpit career, achieved prominence in educational venues, from training Hebrew school teachers to teaching high school and college students and Israeli army officers. An active RA member, Lester served on numerous RA committees as a regional president and Rav HaMachshir, and was a founder of our Association of Retired Rabbis. Howard Hirsch, whose small New Jersey congregation where he served his entire career, belied the enormity of his impact on his greater community, where he served on numerous boards, where he directed Hillel, where he advocated for societal needs and causes reflective of Jewish concerns, both global and close to home. An early enthusiast of Cage, he was a passionate supporter of Jewish educational excellence. David Klatzker, during his congregational rabbinate, authored academic articles, did extensive interfaith outreach, and achieved expertise in training and mentoring transitional rabbis, recognizing that varying pulpit situations require unique skill sets to lead to success and to lead congregations to good decision-making in shaping their future directions. Shlomo Levine, throughout his rabbinate, prioritized egalitarianism even before it had become widely accepted. His creative approach to education brought family educators, scholars in residence, innovative religious school programs, and significant commemorative events to his congregation and community. David Lincoln, from his childhood wartime experiences during the London Blitz to his preeminent pulpit at New York's Park Avenue Synagogue, where he interfaced with national and world leaders, mirrored in his lifetime the transition of the Jewish people in the 20th century. Through his liturgical and halachic writings and his active RA, Zionist, and community involvements, his influence was widespread. Rodney Mariner, whose life and career spanned Australia and the UK, was noted for his work with refugees, with converts, in Holocaust commemoration, his influential pastoral work, and longtime leadership of the Beit Din of Progressive Communities of Europe. Jim Michaels, initially a reporter and newspaper editor, became a rabbi known for his work in chaplaincy, social justice, interfaith relations, community and rabbinic causes, who chaired several RA committees and 2 of our annual conventions. It was not unusual to encounter Jim on rabbinic missions to Israel, including an Israel Bonds rabbinic cabinet visit to Jordan, when Jim brought with him a miniature Torah from which he read on Har Nevo. Jordan Avseir, ordained first as chazan, then as rabbi, serving East Coast congregations, then migrating to Dallas and post-retirement pulpits in Calgary and Palm Springs, found the time to write extensively and to make numerous television appearances. I was honored to have as a congregant Jordan's father, Rabbi Aryeh Avseir, Zichrono Livracha, who frequently shared with me his pride in his son's accomplishments. Sheldon Pennis, primarily serving LA area congregations, established a reputation as an outstanding teacher in high school and adult education settings, where his sessions were highly sought after. He was deeply involved in hospital chaplaincy and was co-founder of LA's first Jewish hospice, where he directed patient care, which he also did at the Jewish Home for the Aged. Moshe Pomerantz's pulpit career extended from Mexico at its outset to Westchester, New York at its conclusion, with lengthy stops in between in the Midwest and West Coast. In each of these venues, Moshe was a devoted and talented educator and a strong rabbinic and pastoral presence, effectively engaging both young and old. That his 2 daughters enjoy successful careers in the cantorate reflects the impact of his influence close to home as well. Samuel Press, with a lengthy pulpit career in the East Coast and Midwest, including chaplaincy service and extended educational and community involvements, is remembered by many of us as a regular presence at conventions, a warm and compassionate colleague, a soft-spoken yet forceful advocate for the values and traditions that he cherished and exemplified. Richard Rockland, in his 40-year rabbinic career in North Carolina and Florida, was remembered for his heightened sense of compassion and for the passion and energy that he brought to every life cycle event and rabbinic function that he performed. As a young child, upon recovering from a near-fatal accident, he had pledged to care for others just as others had cared for him, a commitment that he fulfilled to the very end of his life. Jerry Rosenberg, a longtime devotee of Camp Ramon, Wisconsin, initially as a camper, a staff member, and eventually a grandfather of campers, a chaplain who served in Vietnam and a longtime Chicago area pulpit rabbi, was noted for his pastoral outreach in hospital settings and for his extensive charitable involvements. Milton Rube, the second oldest colleague to be remembered today, who died at age 99, who gravitated from the Orthodox yeshiva world to JTS, served in the pulpit for close to half a century, primarily in Cleveland. A noted scholar, gifted teacher, and writer, He was active in AIPAC from its inception and held leadership roles in many Zionist organizations. Andy Sachs, the pride of Philadelphia, שלימד הרבה סטודנטים שם, בתוכם הרבה מעמיתינו בכנסת הרבנים, וגם כולל מושל מדינת פנסילבניה, ג'וש שפירו. Andy היה עמוד השדרה, ה-backbone של תנועתנו בארץ, שנלחם בשבילנו, בשביל הגרים שלנו בכל רחבי העולם, שנלחם למען מעמד התנועה, למען כנסת הרבנים. Andy עזר הרבה מאיתנו בכל מיני דברים מקטן ועד גדול, לארגן תוכניות, לעזור לאנשים בצער, למול המון בנים בארץ ובחו"ל. כל מה שאנדי עשה היה עשוי עם כל הלב, עם הקשבה מלאה לפרטי פרטים, וגם עם חוש ההומור המיוחד שלו, למרות הרציניות והכבדות של עבודתו הקדושה. Moshe Samber, from director of LTF to chaplaincy service in Korea, to Ramas directorships in New England and Berkshires, Moshe gravitated to a lengthy pulpit career in New Jersey. In addition to his chaplaincy leadership during his pulpit years, he served on numerous RA and movement committees. Passionate for the Hebrew language and literature, he was a gifted educator and devoted community advocate. Erwin Shield, my neighbor, who died just short of his 104th birthday, whose studies in the Würzburg Yeshiva were interrupted on Kristallnacht, followed by his internment in Dachau, his exile to London, his deportation from Britain to Quebec, where he was interned as an enemy alien, from which he was freed with the intervention and assistance of the Kelman family. Erwin would fulfill a 70-year career in Toronto at the Adi Israel congregation, which he nurtured from a very small shul to an 1,800 family synagogue community. Jack Schechter, an early USCJ New England regional director, in his rabbinate excelled in education and youth activities that extended well beyond his home community. He chaired our international convention in 1975 and served with distinction and honor for over 2 decades as Dean of Continuing Education and Community Outreach at AJU. Albert Thaler, in addition to a lengthy and influential congregational rabbinic career in Queens, New York, where he excelled in innovative educational programs and extensive, groundbreaking Israel awareness, serving into his late 80s. He became the initial and decades-long director of the Ramad Day Camp in Nyack, New York, creating a very successful camp program and a nationally recognized model for informal Jewish education. And finally, Carl Wolkin, beginning his rabbinate in Great Neck, spent most of his career in Northbrook, Illinois, where he was noted for his commitment to raising his community's level of observance, his dedication to Israel and to global Jewish communities, his involvement with Camp Ramah, day school education, and charitable causes. He established our Chicago community mikveh and was deeply committed to the RA and to Masorti Olami. Collectively, myriads of lives have been touched by our colleagues whom we remember today. And we acknowledge the rabbinic spouses we recall as well, whom we've lost this year, recognizing that the rabbinate can be at times a lonely place, an aloneness that is mitigated greatly by an understanding partner in life who is there for the rabbi to offer comfort, guidance, and limitless love. We remember Johanna Bromberg, Inga Gaffney, Paul Hamburg, Ruth Margulies, Maria May, Bernice Rube, Judy Siegel, and Judith Thal. Zichronam livracha. As we reflect upon our departed colleagues, we are grateful for what they taught us by action, by example, by dedication to our assembly and to Klal Yisrael, and for the many ways in which they helped shape lives and brought strength to our people. Yehi zichron baruch.
Amen. Bill, thank you for your beautiful tribute of our colleagues and their spouses. I now invite our colleague Hillary Chorney, who will recite El Aslichot, as today is Rosh Chodesh, followed by the English translation from our colleague Annie Tucker. If you're able to rise, please do so.
Hello, Selichot, Chanun verachum, Erech Apayim verav chesed, Hametzei chavrat vasha, Ve'agravat yesha, Umnucha nechuna, Tachat kanvei hashekhinah, B'mailot kedoshim u'torim, Kezohar rakim asirim, Et nishmot, Harav Michael Yitzchak, Ben Yehuda Moshe Berivka Mendel, Harav Eliezer David, Ben Harav Meir ve'Esther Etta, Et Harav Noach Ben Chaim ve'Bela, Et Harav Benyamin Yitzchak Ben Leib Hirsch HaKohen, Et Harav David Ben Yitzchak, Et Harav Chanoch Ben Yisrael Yaakov HaLevi Ben Bara, Et Harav Reuven Yisrael Ben Yitzchak Udvora, Et Harav Menachem Mendel Shalom Ben Chaim Vereza, Et Harav Mordechai Yosef Ben Miriam Umeir HaLevi, Et Harav Yosef Ben Hanan Ben Metaleah, Et Harav Eliezer Ben Yitzchak Reuven Vechaya, Et Harav Tzvi Ben Moshe, Et Harav David Ben Eliyahu Veshirka, Et Harav Shlomo Ben Benyamin HaLevi Veleha, Et Harav David Chaim Ben Asher Vetzipora, Et Harav Yaakov Ben Yitzchak Yosef Vesimcha Shoshana, Et Harav Yaakov Reuven Ben Gershon Venecha, Et Harav Yarden Shmuel Ben Aryeh Ve'ora, Et Harav Shmuel Leib Ben Reuven Vahana, Et Harav Moshe Chaim Ben Chazan Gedalia V'Tova, Et Harav Shalom Ben Mordechai V'Fesel, Et Harav Yerachmiel Chaim Ben Mendel Tzvi Huvega, Et Harav Gershon Ben Binyamin, Et Harav Moshe Dov Ben Yisrael David V'Saraleha, Et Harav Avraham Michael Ben Yitzchak Tzvi V'Chayaleha, Et Harav Moshe Ben Yitzchak V'Fega, Et Harav Baruch Aryeh Ben Naphtali V'Hatel, Et Harav Chaim Yaakov Ben Yehuda Aryeh Ufesha, Et Harav Aharon Ben David Eliyahu V'Kresel, Et Harav Yekutiel Ben Pinchas V'Rivcha, Shelechu le'olamam, Anabal harachamim, Zokra lahem letova, Kol zechuyotayhem, Vetzidkotayhem, Bertzot ha'chaim, Uvetach lahem, Sharei tzedek v'yorah, Sharechem lavachanina, B'seiter gnafecha hastirem, Le'olamim, Utzror yitzror ha'chaim, Et nishmotehem, Adonai hu nachalatam, V'yanuchu b'shalom, Al mishkevotehem, V'nomar amen.
Amen.
Eloah selichot, Chanun v'rachum erech apayim, V'rav chesed, Hamesecha parat vesha, V'agravat yesha, Umnucha nechuna tachat kanvei hashchina, V'malot kedoshim u'torim, Kezor harakim asirim, Et nishmot, Chana bat Moshe v'tirza, Et Nechama bat Shmuel Mindel, Et Rivka bat Yoshua Moshe ve'Hinta, Et Miriam bat Chaim ve'Chana, Et Racha bat Yitzchak u'Fegla, Et Yehudit bat David ve'Chana, Et Chaya yashav habat ben Tzihon, She'alechu le'olaman, Ana rachamim, Zokra lahen letova, Chol yesechu yoteihen, V'tzid koteihen, Bertzot ha'chaim, Uftach lahen, Sharei tzedek ve'yora, Sharechem lavachanina, V'seiter gnafecha, Hastirehen le'olamim, Utzror v'tzror ha'chaim, Et nishmoteihen, Adonai hu nachalatan, ותנו וינוחו בשלום על משכבותיהן, ונאמר אמן. אלוה סליחות, חנון ורחום, ירח אפיים ורב חסד אמיתי, חברת פשע והקרבת ישע, ומנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים ותורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת פלטיאל חיים, בן דניאל דוב הלוי ולאה, שלח לעולמו עיניו על הרחמים, זכרה לו לטובתו זכויותיו וצדקותיו בארצות החיים, ובטח לו שערי צדק ויורה, שערי חמלה וחנינה, וסתר כנפיך הסתירהו לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר amen.
God of forgiveness, you who are gracious and compassionate, patient and abundantly kind, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the souls of Matthew Bellis, David Blumenfeld, Neil Brief, Burton Cohen, Donald Crane, Robert Firestein, Robert Fine, Emmanuel Goldsmith, Michael Gratz, Jules Harlow, Lester Herring, Howard Hirsch, David Klatzker, Shlomo Levine, David Lincoln, Rodney Mariner, James Michaels, Jordan Offsayer, Sheldon Pennis, Moshe Pomerantz, Samuel Press, Richard Rocklin, Jerry Rosenberg, Milton Rube, Andrew Sachs, Moshe Samber, Erwin Shield, Jack Schechter, Albert Thaler, Carl Wolken, Joanna Bromberg, Inga Gaffney, Paul Hamburg, Ruth Margulies, Miriam May, Bernice Rube, Judy Siegel, and Judith Thal, who have all gone to their eternal homes. Merciful One, we ask that you remember all their worthy and righteous deeds that they performed. May our loved ones find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May their soul be bound up in the bond of life. May they always rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Annie, and thank you, Hillary. I now invite our colleague, Gisa Ederberg, Vice President of the Rabbinical Assembly, to share a few words of Torah.
חודש טוב לכולכם. Have a good new month. I want to dedicate this Torah to all the colleagues, friends, teachers who we are remembering. And I want also to dedicate it to the Refuah Shlema, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf, to the newly rescued and freed hostages, Agam Berger, Arbel Yehud, Gadi Moses, Pongzak Fenna, Statian Suwanakam, Wachara Sveaun, Benowat Sithao, and Surasak Lamnau, who are going back to their homeland of Thailand. As rabbis, we share in the task of connecting our people to the Torah and connecting our Torah to our people. And I remember that in rabbinical school, one of the crucial questions always was, how do we make these old texts relevant to our time and to our communities, be it in congregations, schools, organizations, or wherever we have been put to do our work. But I must confess that since October 7th, I would often very much prefer for the verses of the Torah to be less relevant to our daily life. I would love to have to search and study to make the connection to our daily lives. But instead, Torah and Tefillah are shouting out to us, are crying out to us about the situation we and all of the people of Israel find ourselves in. And it sometimes feels enough to just quote a verse and let it stand by itself. So Parashat Bo, which we're reading on Shabbat, says, the Holy One says to Moshe, tell Pharaoh, Shlach et ami vayavduni, let my people go to worship me. כי אם מאן אתה לשלח ואותך מחזיק בן, because if you refuse to let them go and continue to hold them, and I might add, torture them on their way home, the moment of release, them and their families who are watching. הנה יד אדוני הויה במקנך אשר בשדה, בסוסים, בחמורים, בגמלים, בבקר ובצאן, דבר כבד מאוד. Then the hand of God will be on your cattle, on your fee, on your horses, donkeys, camels, a very heavy plague. And then we stand there and are like, do we really want to bring upon the plague on the people who are doing us this injustice? Further down in the parasha, the famous verse appears, "HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodeshim, rishon hu lachem lechodshei hashana." And somehow in this gathering, I read this verse, which we all know about. It's announcing Pesach by saying, this month shall be for you the beginning of the months. It shall be the first of the months of the year for you. I read it this time as a permission to count time according to what it means for us. Even though there are objective criteria, there is Rosh Chodesh, and Rosh Chodesh is coming no matter what we do. But yes, it invites us to count our own time and to be aware that for us, it's also okay to count our time differently. Here, in this gathering, as our RA, our rabbinic family, we count the days of the beloved colleagues we have lost, counting till the first yahrzeit, counting birthdays, the first birthday without the person you are mourning, counting a wedding day that passes by, celebrating your own birthday without your husband, father, brother around. Rishon hu lachem, a first because somebody so important is missing. And as the people of Israel, we all together count 482 days in captivity. And we keep counting for those who are still in captivity, while we celebrate with the 8 families for whom this rings so true. Rishon hu lachem lechodshei hashana, a new and not easy beginning of a new life after liberation, after the horrors. May we reach Pesach this year, when many of you will be sitting at the table for the first time without your loved ones. May we reach that time with all the hostages having returned home.
Amen. Thank you, Gisa, for your beautiful words. I now invite our colleague Harold Kravitz, immediate past president of the Rabbinical Assembly, to recite the Kaddish D'Rabbanan. You're muted.
Thank you. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Divra kedutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala v'zman kari v'meru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi
Yehi
Shmei
Shmei
Rabbah,
Rabbah,
Melach,
Melach,
Yolam,
Yolam,
Olamei,
Olamei
Almaya.
Almaya.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei d'kudsha.
B'richu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'oma v'meru. Amen.
Amen.
Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Talmidehon, v'al kol Talmidei Talmidehon, v'al kol man da'askin b'oraita, di v'atra hadin v'di v'chol atar v'atar. Yehi lahon ruchon shlama rabba, china v'chizda v'rachamim, v'chayin arichin v'zona revicha, v'forkon amin kodem avahon devishmaya v'meru. Amen.
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 Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru. Amen.
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 Shalom b'momav, u'barachamav yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'meru. Amen.
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 Thank you, Harold. I'd like to, at this time, just thank all the people who participated today in this service. Our colleagues, Phil Scheim, Hillary Chorney, Annie Tucker, Gisa Edinburgh, and Harold Kravitz. I also want to thank Alana Garber for putting together this Azkarah, and to Jan Kaufman for putting together our memorial book, which I hope you'll all have an opportunity to look at. The next part of our program is I'd like to, at this time, invite Jacqui and Yaron. Jacqui and Yaron Vital are the parents of Adi Vital Kaploun, who was living with her husband and two young children on Kibbutz Holit in Israel on October 7th, 2023. Adi was murdered in her safe room. Yaron, staying in the nearby guest house, was somehow spared, and her boys were kidnapped to Gaza and then miraculously released. This is their heartbreaking and inspiring story. It's an honor for us to have with us Jacqui and Yaron.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting us. I just want on a personal note to say how many friends I have who are online right now, many of whom are your conservative rabbis, who I went to camp with years ago. I went to Mador on the one-year program. So I'm just really happy to be with all of you. My name is Jacqui Rivers Vital. I was born in Ottawa, Canada. I made Aliyah when I was 21. I'm married to Yaron Vital. We have 4 children, 8 grandchildren. Adi was daughter number 3. As you said, she was murdered in her safe room on Kibbutz Holit in front of her 2 small boys on Simchat Torah 2023. We do a 2-part presentation. I talk about Adi and a Maaseh Chesed that people have shown us over the past, it's hard to say already, 15 months. And then Yaron will tell you the story of what happened on Holit that day and how he survived. But before we speak about Adi, we want to show you Adi. Number 3. I don't know who's running this.
We got it.
Keep going. 3rd one. No, that's at the end.
Ah, okay.
On the top.
Next, number 10,
Yeah.
Alex, number 10. There we go.
No, that was it. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Back. Okay.
The one
This one?
that
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
לו היינו מגיעים לביקור בקיבוץ חולית 2 קודם, הכל היה נראה אחרת לגמרי. הקיבוץ שממוקם בפתחת שלום היה במצב אנוש. תושבים רבים נטשו, הקופה הלכה והתרוקנה. ואז הם הגיעו, 10 צעירים שכינו את עצמם גרעין שותפים והפכו את כל התמונה. adi קפלון בן ה-24 הוא אחד מהם. הוא גדל בכלל בירושלים, עירוני למהדרין, בוגר מכינה. הבוקר אנחנו פוגשים אותו במטע הלימונים שאותו הוא מנהל. אז מה מביא בחור בן 24 להיות מנהל מטע?
זה מתחיל בזה שאני לא אגור בעיר. טבע, חי, צומח, זה משהו שתמיד דיבר אליי וזרם. אז עושה לי טוב, ממש. לגעת באדמה, פשוט להיות שם.
שלום. שלום. היי, אני אורלי.
שלום, אני עדי, מה שלומך?
חמים פה.
חמים ונעים.
אחת ממקימות הגרעין היא עדי קפלון, בת 23, שהגיעה לחולית עוד כשהייתה חיילת, והספיקה מאז להתחתן עם ענני, שפגשנו במטע הלימונים. אני רואה כאן לימונים בכל מקום, בכל זאת בעלך הוא בוס במטע.
לימונים בלי סוף, ויש פה עוד מיליון פירות וירקות בלי סוף.
כן.
יש פה את החדר שינה שלנו, שגם מיטה שענני בנה, שזה גם אבזור.
זה קיבוץ עם הכי הרבה ספרי קודש שראיתי.
אני לוקחת ערכים מהיהדות, והם מאוד נוכחים בי במחשבה, חלקם יותר גם בפרקטיקה, אבל אנחנו מכירים את השפה הזו, אנחנו מדברים אותה אולי בדיאלקטיקה קצת אחרת.
כן.
אז בגלל גם שאנחנו גרים באזור הזה שיכול להיות טיפה מסוכן, אז יש גם ממ"ד. אני עושה את הפסח הזה. נראה לי זה.
עוד בטרם מצאו את ביתם בחולית, מקימי הגרעין כבר ידעו לנסח את החזון.
מי אנחנו? קבוצה ישראלית ציונית צעירה, מעורבת של דתיים וחילונים ששואפת לחיות חיי שותפות, נתינה, יצירה, לימוד וחיבור לאדמת ארץ ישראל.
זה מרגש אתכם קצת?
אותי ממש.
כן, זה מחזיר קצת כזה את ההתרגשות של ההתחלה.
מלבד הרצון להקים קהילה, מסתתרת מאחורי החבורה אידיאולוגיה ברורה, ורק מי שמאמין בה יכול להיות שותף. מאיפה בא לכם הרעיון להקים גרעין?
הפנטזיות האלה.
כשהיינו עדיין בצבא, אז זה המשיך לקבל צורה בצורה של מפגשים ולחשוב ולגבש ולחדד את מה בדיוק אנחנו רוצים, כי גם קצת התבגרנו והבנו מה זה באמת אומר להקים קהילה, את החלק הפרקטי של זה, של אם אנחנו באמת רוצים, איפה אנחנו רוצים לגור, מה אנחנו רוצים לעשות עם זה.
כאילו הרבה חבר'ה בגילכם, יוצאים לתל אביב, לברים, כאילו, הולכים לסרטים, חיים כאילו חיים של חבר'ה צעירים. אתם לא מרגישים שבאיזשהו אופן התבגרתם מהר מדי?
אנחנו עושים את כל מה שאמרת, פשוט פעמיים בשבוע. דברים גדולים ביחד. מי שבא לפה, בא לפה להיות שותף. גם הסלוגן עכשיו של הקיבוץ זה כזה, קיבוץ חולית מחפש שותפים. אנחנו מחפשים מישהו שירצה לקחת פה חלק בתנופה.
חדשים.
מלא ילדים, מלא ילדים.
3 שנים עברו מאז שניסחו עדי, אביעד ושאר חברי גרעין שותפים את המסמך האוטופי, ואולי אפילו נאיבי הזה. היום הם גאים שהצליחו לממש לפחות חלק מהחזון.
עוד נצליח לממש עוד כמה דברים, לא יודעת אם את הכל, אבל כמה דברים עוד יקרו.
אנחנו ממשים את הרוב. וחלק גדול מהיעדים האלה מראש נבנו כיעדים שנועדו לחיים בשלב היותר מתקדם של משפחות. זאת אומרת, יש פה שאיפה לצורת חיים. זה קטע. כאילו, כי לא הסתכלנו על זה כל כך הרבה זמן, אבל איפה שזה פשוט היה שם.
I'm going to read a piece that was written probably at the end of October 2023 by a family friend, and it sums up Adi. It's entitled Jewel. I've wanted to write about Adi since I learned of her death, but I was afraid it might be presumptuous of me. How could I pay tribute to her life or capture the magnitude of her loss? And yet, I felt compelled to try. From the Israeli media, I learned that Adi lived in Kibbutz Holit near the Gaza border with her husband Anani and 2 sons, Negev, who was 3 years and 9 months, and Eshel, who was a day short of 6 months. Early on the morning of October 7th, 2023, when missiles rained down on the communities in the Gaza envelope, Adi grabbed her sons and took shelter in their security room. They had 7 seconds. At some point, probably from the sounds of shooting and screaming outside her house, she must have understood this was not a usual air raid. With a presence of mind and fortitude I cannot even fathom, she called Anani, who happened to be away from the kibbutz that morning, and asked him to give her a refresher on how to load their rifle. She said she'd speak to him again once it was all over. Anani that morning had gone out with 30 members of the kibbutz on a sunrise hike They were out in the fields. They were hiking, and then they were going to have breakfast. And they also got caught at 6:30 with the missiles overhead. And because Anani was part of the security squad of the kibbutz, he knew what to do to keep those people hidden from the terrorists and move them from place to place until hours later the army took them to Kibbutz Nirim. All those 30 people are alive. And for that same reason, Adi had access to the M16 rifle that was in the safe in their house. And that's why she called him and asked him how to use it. When Hamas terrorists entered Adi's home, she fired, killing one terrorist, but ultimately succumbing to the gunfire of the others before Negev and Eshel's eyes. The terrorists then took the boys along with Adi's neighbor Avital and headed in the direction of Gaza. For some incomprehensible reason, and we know today what that reason was, they may have been staging a propaganda or publicity stunt, and that's what it was. The terrorists let Avital and the boys go after crossing the border. They did cross the border. They were in Rafah, and just before the tunnels, they let them go. And I don't know if you remember, but on October 9th, Monday night, October 9th, Anderson Cooper showed the release of Negev on the border and Avital coming to pick him up and walk back to the kibbutz. Though Negev had a shrapnel injury to his foot and Eshel had difficulty breathing from smoke inhalation, Avital shepherded them to safety. The story of Adi's actions under extreme duress give me insight into how quick-thinking and courageous she was, but they don't sum up her life. I learned from the eulogies at the funeral and stories I overheard at the Shiva that Adi attended the Masorti High School in Jerusalem, served in the elite intelligence unit in the army, received a master's degree with honors in chemical engineering from Ben-Gurion University, worked in cybersecurity, danced, played the saxophone, played basketball, and excelled at everything she did. But again, this list of achievements does not encapsulate who Adi was. Nor does the following list of adjectives that many use to describe her: smart, serious, self-disciplined, talented, quiet, modest, sensitive, gentle, strong, independent, non-judgmental, accepting of others. I spoke to Adi's younger brother Asaf. He told me that Adi's friends said she reminded them of Carole King, that she loved music of all kinds, that she didn't drink and eat at the same time, that she and Anani were high school sweethearts, that she had a dog, a German Shepherd mix named Pete, whom she loved and called Pita, that she made her own granola. Adi's friend Dana told me that Adi loved to run and ran on the road that encircled the kibbutz, that she knew she'd marry Anani when he traveled 3.5 hours each way from his army base to visit her for 2 hours in her pre-army academy. That when she found out she was pregnant with Negev, she was afraid that she might be a bad mother, but was, as it turned out, an exceptionally devoted one. That she loved the quiet desert landscape. She always said that she lived 97% of the time in paradise, in Gan Eden. Dana described her as a Maayan, a spring of water, quiet and deep, with hidden and surprising corners. When I asked Dana if there was anything in particular that lingered in her memories of Adi, she said, her eyes, their loving, joyful expression. I searched for more descriptions of Adi, scrolling through the Facebook pages of her family and friends. I contemplated calling her husband Anani and her sisters Ayala and Liat, but at some point I stopped. I understood I couldn't capture Adi in 5 or even 700 words. I couldn't even capture one of her hidden, surprising corners. All I can hope to convey is that Adi was extraordinary, that her life was full and rich and bursting with promise, that she was precious, like her name, which means jewel, that she loved and was loved, and that her death has left a gaping hole in the hearts of everyone who knew her. Now you can show this slide. Okay, this picture is the last picture. No, go back, go back. The picture of the four of them. Last picture that we have of the four of them. It was taken in July 2023. They were at a brit. I think it's the only picture we have of the four of them. Now you can go to the next picture. This is the last picture of our immediate family. It was taken on Rosh Hashanah 2023. We were all, as you can see, outside in the garden. And Adi took all of the pictures, and the last one, she did a selfie. So we do have a picture with all of us. That was the last one. Now you keep going. Keep going. Okay. These two pictures are taken from footage that Al Jazeera took. The picture on the right is the terrorist holding the two boys, probably right after they murdered Adi. It's all on film. We have the film. They have the boys, and they took them outside to the porch, and the terrorists bandaged Negev's foot, and they put Eshel in a carriage and rocked him. And we know that approximately 15, 20 minutes later, they brought the boys to Adi Vital, who's on the left. This is when they were released, but they brought the boys to her. She was hiding in her safe room with another friend who they shot. They shot the friend, and they pulled her out of the cupboard, brought the boys to her and said, "We're going to Gaza, get dressed." So this was the film that they took when they released her. Next. This is what our car looked like when Yaron decided that he wanted to go home at the end of the day on October the 7th. As you can see, there are bullet holes all over the place. The windows were shot out, but the car did start, and he did manage to drive it back to Modi'in late that Motzei Shabbat. Next. Okay, survivors of that day, of our immediate family. Top left is our daughter Ayala, daughter number 2. She was in Kibbutz Kisufim. They'd only moved there 2 months prior to October the 7th, and they were also in their safe room for 12 hours with no electricity, no way of communicating with the outside world, so none of us knew if they were alive. Mazal, the terrorists did not go into their house, and they were evacuated by the IDF straight to buses and taken to the Dead Sea, and they lived there for 10 months in a hotel room. And just before the school year started, the community of Kisufim moved to Omer, just outside of Beersheba. On the bottom left is Yaron with Negev. Yaron is a volunteer in the Jerusalem police, and they joined the Shiva. They took us on a fun day with the police. They took Negev to show him the police dogs, the horses. We met the chief of police. And on the left, this was November 2023, is a nanny with the 2 boys. So you can see that Eshel's still a baby, and Negev it was maybe a month after it happened, but they all survived that day. Next. Keep going. That was a year ago, Hanukkah. Next. A picture from about 2 months ago, just so you can see that the boys look good, they grew, they're happy, they're living on a moshav down south, not far from Holit. Holit is still a military zone, you cannot go there, you can't live there. But they live about 15 minutes away from Holit. Next. Next. On the Shloshim, Yaron is a teacher, and at his school they had a tekes, and they put up these two plaques in wood. On the far right is Adi's picture and details of her birth and death, and on the left are the words that are written on Adi's kever. It's a poem that she wrote in July 2023, and it's on the kever. It's here. There are 3 songs that have 3 compositions of music made to those words. And on the left is a tree that was planted that day. And the students put colored stones that said Ahava, Yedidu, all of those kind, Shalom, all those kinds of good words. And Yaron told me that last week it started to give fruit. So a year later, it's giving fruit. Next. Okay, here's her kever. That's the first part. There's 2 parts to her kever. That's the poem that she wrote. And I'll just read the translation. You can read the Hebrew. When my baby boy lays atop my chest, everything seems so good. And this good carries on even when it is not so close. Like magic dust swept up by the desert winds, we are both wrapped in green and dreams. And sometimes when reality comes knocking, we send it away for another time, when we will have to answer, Hinenu, we are ready, or Einenu, we are not. And on the far left is a logo. A young couple in Ottawa were feeling kind of helpless and what could they do? And they had this idea and they drew this logo. It's the head of a lioness. I hope that you can see that it's the head of a lioness. And in the woman's eye in the back, it says Adi in Hebrew. Somebody nod if they can see. And on the bottom, it says Halivia. And then Henam Kilavi Yakum. And from that became, you will get a link. They've made t-shirts and hoodies, etc. And it's a fundraiser for our grandsons, any of the things that they do. We need to go back to channel 13. I think it was 31.
The next slide will be our video.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Oh, okay, yeah.
ענני, בן זוגה של עדי ואביהם של הילדים, הוא סגן מפקד כיתת הכוננות בחולית, אבל לא היה בבית בשבת בבוקר. הוא יצא לטיול טבע עם חבריו.
יצרתי קשר עם עדי בבית. היא אמרה לי שהיא שומעת כבר יריות.
המחבלים עוברים בית וטובחים באנשים, ובשלב מסוים מגיעים לביתם. עדי, שמבינה שיש סכנה ממשית לילדיה, יודעת שבכספת שבבית יש רובה M16, אבל היא צריכה רענון כדי להבין איך להשתמש בו. בקור רוח ששמעו רק לגיבורים, היא מחייגת לענני, מבקשת הנחיות, ויוצאת להגן על המשפחה.
ביקשה שאני תזכר אותה ככה, בקצרה, מחסנית, נצרה. אמרה שנדבר אחר כך, שיגמר. הייתה עם הילדים בממ"ד, ולא דיברנו מאז.
עדי מצליחה לחסל מחבל אחד שנכנס לביתה.
מספר שהגיעו חיילים רעים הביתה עם מקדחות, וקדחו את כל הבית. אבא אומר לי, חייבים לשפץ. גם לאמא הייתה מקדחה. הם רצו לקדוח באשל ואמא לא נתנה להם. היא אמרה לנו שנזכור שהיא הכי אוהבת אותנו בעולם, ואז היא הלכה. ככה, ואז היא הלכה. בעצם אז חשבנו בעצם 4 ימים חשבנו שהיא הלכה. היא הלכה כמו כולם, כמו הרבה לפחות, לכיוון הרצועה.
ירון, אביה של עדי, נמצא במושב, מטרים ספורים בלבד, מהבית שבו היא מנהלת קרב על חייה וחיי ילדיה.
התקשרתי לבת שלי, והיא אומרת לי, אבא, יש שיגורים, תכנס מיד לממ"ד. ביקשתי אישור לבוא אליה, היא, אתה יודע, עם הנחרצות שלה ועם הטון
לא.
לא, אבא, אתה נשאר בדירה הזאת, לא יוצא, סוף פסוק, ונתקע גם את הטלפון, שאני לא אנסה לשכנע אותה.
אחרי כמה שעות, כשכוחות צה"ל מצליחים להשתלט על חולית, אף אחד לא יודע היכן נמצאים אשל ונגב, וגם לא עדי.
הממ"ד, אני הצטמררתי, כל הדלת של הממ"ד מחוררת בכדורים. החיילים אומרים לי שאני אבדוק, שאני אחפש בבית, ואני גם שואל את ענני איפה לחפש. הוא אמר לי כל מיני מקומות מסתור, שהוא יכול להיות שהיא תתחבא. היא לא הייתה באף מקום מסתור.
מגיע לבית, תוך כדי שיחה, הוא אומר לי שאין אף אחד בבית, הם אינם.
ענני כבר התכונן לגרוע מכל, וחשב שילדיו נחטפו לעזה.
גררו אותם זוועות מסע שאף אחד לא אמור לעבור לתוך הרצועה, ומשם בעצם שחררו אותם, את אביטל ואת 2 הילדים, נגב ואשל. כשהם הגיעו חזרה לחולית בסוף מסע נוסף, אז הבנתי בעצם שהילדים בחיים.
קילומטר בלבד לפני מנהרת חמאס, המחבלים מחליטים לשחרר את הילדים יחד עם שכנתם, אביטל אלג'ם.
נגב כנראה כועס, צועק, רעב אולי, אומר למחבל כל הזמן, תוריד אותי, תוריד אותי, תוריד אותי. פתאום מתהפכת התמונה, הוא מוריד את נגב מהכתפיים ומסמן ביד, תחזרו.
רק אז גיליתי שהם בחיים. כשהגעתי נגב היה בשוק מוחלט. אשל היה ממש אחרי מקלחת, אבל עוד מפויח, ככה גם נזלת, דמעות, הכל שחור. הוא עדיין יונק, כן, הוא בן 0.5 שנה.
בכל אותו זמן המשפחה בטוחה. בעוד המחבלים משחררים את הילדים, את עדי הם חוטפים לעזה. רק כעבור יומיים מתבררת האמת האכזרית. עדי קפלון ויטל, שנלחמה כמו לביאה על חייהם של ילדיה, נמצאה מתחת לשמיכה בממ"ד של המשפחה, כשגופתה ממולכדת.
מתחת לכל הבלגן, הם שמו עליה את המיטה, את הארון, הכל הפילו עליה ומלכדו את זה. אז הודיעו לנו ביום שלישי רק שנמצאה הגופה.
היית בטוח שהיא חטופה?
לגמרי, לגמרי, כי אין ילדים גם, אין ילדים. אני לא רואה סימנים של דם. הכל היה מתחת לכאוס הזה בממ"ד.
אני מודה שהייתה הקלה מלאה, טוטלית, כשהבנתי שעדי נרצחה ולא בעצם נחטפה.
הקלה?
הקלה, מוחלטת. קברנו אותה, אנחנו יודעים איפה היא, אני לא צריך לדאוג. אני אדאג לילדים, אני לא צריך לדאוג לעדי גם, שאני לא יודע בכלל איפה היא, אבל שלם עם המצב. ונשלים עם זה גם בעתיד.
אי אפשר אפילו לדמיין מה עבר על הילדים הקטנים והתמימים האלה, שראו את אמם נרצחת לנגד עיניהם, וכמעט נחטפו. המשפחה מנסה להישאר מאוחדת, להקל את מה שקרה ולשמור על נגב ואשל.
אתה מוכן לנסוע, המפקד? אפשר? לסגור את הדלת?
יוצאים.
יוצאים.
The reason that we show this, and until 8 days ago, or no, it's 12 already, was when Anani said, this was taken during Shiva. It was 10 days after it happened, that Anani said he was relieved, that he knew where Adi was. we had a lot of people had a hard time with that statement way back when. And I always said it. I only had 4 days of not knowing where she was. I don't know how people live through 470 plus days not knowing. Today, or the last few days, we've been very lucky that some of those girls have come home, but too many didn't. I'm gonna we don't have a lot of times, and I want you to hear your own story. So he'll talk now.
Well, first, you know that as you understand, I was a survivor of that day. And I really want to thank all of you for listening, because it does help me to recover from the wounded that I have to a pain, to a scar, and by talking to you people. So I was there, and it started the next day very early in the morning on Saturday morning. It started with a noise that I woke up at 6:30. And when I walk out of the apartment, I saw the missiles that coming from Gaza. I called Adi, offered to come and help her, but she insisted that I will stay in the apartment. So I was staying there, and I was in the safe room, and it didn't stop. And after approximately 40 minutes, I decided I'm going out to see what's going on. And through the window, I saw the terrorists trying to break into the kibbutz. I saw one on the other side of the fence of the kibbutz, riding motorcycle like crazy. All of them have rifles. Some of them have an RPG. All of them have a knapsack with the explosion on their back. And for one reason I don't understand, they decide to break in another location, not in front of my window. And they split, and after a few minutes, I heard an explosion. And by the safety camera of the kibbutz, they see that they come in, and one of the leader of the Hamas is spreading the people and start to tell them to go for the killing. So I go back to the safe room waiting, and in the background, I can hear the shooting. And again, after a little bit, I decide I'm going out again. And this time I go into the bathroom. The bathroom has a very small window facing Adi's apartment. And I can hear the terrorist walking on the path between those two houses and screaming about killing the people in the houses. And I start to hear that they break in doors. And there was lots of screaming between the people inside the apartment and the terrorists. And there was a quick shooting, and there was a little bit of quiet, and it does repeat from apartment to apartment. And like that, they was killing 15 people around me. But I didn't understand why do they skip the apartment that I'm staying. And this moment that I thought that they're going to break in, I ran to the safe room, tried to lock the door, and it doesn't work. So I'm staying behind the door, holding the handle for a while. I'm getting tired. I get connected from Adi. She sent me a message at 12:30 that she heard the terrorists trying to break to her house. And she's asking me to close tight the door and try to keep safe there. So I'm trying to find a way, instead of holding the door, to do something with the handle that it doesn't open because it doesn't lock. The handle doesn't turn around. So there was a chair in the safe room, and I put it under the handle, and I find a rope under the bed, and I tie the rope one side to the handle and the other side to the ceiling. There was a ventilation there. And like that, I'm in the safe room for 11 hours by myself, waiting for the army that didn't come. I just want to tell you when I was young and I was doing reserve for 24 years, I reserve on that border. And I know that soldiers should be less than 7 minutes protecting the people. but we didn't know that they broke into the bases before they broke into the kibbutz, and they kidnapped the soldier and killed some of them. So that's why nobody came. But after 11 hours, I started to hear shooting between the terrorists, and I assumed that was some Israeli army, a soldier. But in one point, somebody break the door into my apartment. So I thought it's a terrorist that tried to hide from the soldier. So I keep quiet. But suddenly those people that walk in start to scream in Hebrew, is somebody here, somebody here? But I still was keeping quiet because I know that some of the terrorists tried to convince people to open the door and shoot at them and hide from them at the safe room instead of the people that was there. And if you don't answer, they usually used to burn the house on the people that was there, force them to open the door. So I kept quiet for a while, and I tried to listen to the accent, if they have an Arab accent. But after a few minutes, they came to the door and knocked on the door of the safe room and asked, is somebody there? And I decided that's it. I have to do something. And I say, yes, it's me here. Who are you? They said, this is this IDF soldier. Open the door. And I said, please don't shoot. I'm going to open the door. I'm Jewish. I'm Israeli. And I'm waiting here. So I opened the door. There was 5 soldiers there. And they asked me, what do I do here? And I told them that I'm a guest of my daughter. When I asked them, what do they do there? And they told me that they have to clear the house from terrorists that hiding. And that's what they do. And when I told them about my daughter, they said, let's go to her apartment and see if somebody is there. We walked to her apartment, which was 5-6 meters far away from my apartment. And they broke in looking for somebody inside, and they came after a few seconds. They came and told me that I can walk with them in, and they told me there is a dead body in the kitchen that they want me to identify the body. And I walked in, and it was a man that I didn't know. So just in case they call, I thought maybe it's a part of the security SWAT that came to help Adi. So they called somebody else from the kibbutz, and he said he doesn't know him. He might be terrorist. And there was an RPG beside him, so we knew for sure that that was a terrorist. And the reason, after that, the reason that they didn't come to my apartment, we found out on the body camera of the terrorists that got killed by the soldier, and some of them in the knapsack, they have map of the kibbutz, and all the houses was marked there, who live where, who have kids, who have dog, all the information. And my apartment marked on their map as an empty apartment because it was a guest house apartment. So that was the reason that they didn't break into to my apartment. After a while, I decided that I want to leave and I walked to the car, as you saw in the picture, the car been shot. And I was asking the soldier if I can leave the kibbutz, and they say, yes, the road is open, we are in control. But I had a bad feeling about that, and I called a friend of mine that live in a kibbutz not far away from Kibbutz Holit. I told him that my daughter, I didn't see Adi all of the time, so I thought she was kidnapped. And I told him that I'm leaving and I'm going home, and that the soldier told me it's safe to go home. And he said, which way they told you to go? So I told them the main road. So he said, don't go on the main road. I'm going to give you another direction to go because the main road is full of terrorists that should stop the people on the road, shoot at them, kill them, and burn them in the car. And when I drove, I saw all the burning car, and the army already evacuated all the body from those cars. So I didn't have to see enough that I saw all the people that got shot, the apartment beside me. And later on, after we buried Adi, after they find the body, the soldier that find the body came and told us the story, what happened there. Because I was looking for her at the safe room, but as I say, the safe room was a mess. Sofa and the closet was upside down, so I couldn't see anything under, and it was dark already. So they told me after 4 days, they came back to look for all of those bodies and evacuate them from there, from the kibbutz. So when they came to Adi's house, they asked me if I tried to open the door to the safe room. And I say yes. And you say, you've been very, very lucky. Because they booby trap, beside booby trap her body, they booby trap the door with a grenade. And when I opened the door, I designated the grenade, but it didn't explode because by luck, it was a failure one. It didn't work. So they decide not to go in case there is more grenade, and there was more grenades. So they went from outside, they pulled the window from the wall, and under the couch that was very close to the window, they saw part of her hand sticking under, and very carefully they pulled the body out, and another unit take off the grenade that was there, and they took her for a place to identify the body, and after they got convinced that that's her, they gave us the body, and we buried her in Bet Shemesh. And that's, I don't know, by luck, by miracle, I'm a survival of that day, and a lot of that is because of Adi. She was stubborn that I will stay there, and because of that, and later on, because the terrorists didn't know about this apartment, I'm here to tell you the story. And I want to thank you so much. And just mentioning that later on that day, when I was driving back, I got a message from Anani's partner that the kids is back. So when we talked to Avital, we understand that after they killed Adi, they went to her house and they showed her the kids, asked her if she know the kids, and she said yes, it's my neighbor kids. So they took her to Gaza, and over there, because of a propaganda, and there was a reporter there, they took a film that they released her. And in one point, when she saw another terrorist come, so she was lying down on the ground, and when he went by, he didn't kill her. She told Negev, "We are safe. We have to go home." But he didn't want to. He didn't want to go home. He was wounded. He was being shot at the foot, and he said, "I'm in pain. I cannot walk anymore, and I'm starving. I want to eat something." So she asked him, "What do you want to eat?" And he say, "Apple." So he say, "If you get up and walk with me, I will get you 2 apples." And when they arrived to the kibbutz and they saw the people in the kibbutz, he told them, I want my apple now that she promised me. And somebody got him 2 apples and he ate them. And the next day they brought him to Jerusalem, to the hospital to operate his foot and give Eshel oxygen. And they are okay, as you saw in the picture. That's my story. And I want to thank you for let us talk to you and tell us the story. And we want you to be our ambassador to tell the story to other people. We want to keep her alive and other people that was been killed on that day. Thank you so much.
Jacqui and Yaron, I want to thank you for sharing your story with us. First of all, to offer our condolences on your loss, but also for your courage to be able to do this. I know, I can only imagine it. We know it's not easy, but I think it's important to do it. And I'm glad you're able to do it. And this way, Adi's memory will continue to be alive and continue to remain alive through all those who hear her story and through all those who tell her story. So thank you so much for joining us. And to everyone on this call, thank you for joining us for the Azkarah. Pray that the memory of all those who we remember today, that they should be a blessing. Yehi zichro baruch. Have a wonderful day and better times.
Thank you again.